So another month has gone by now. We have more information, more data that's come up for July's real estate market stats, let's say, here at Edmonton. And so if you're clicking on this video, wondering what the heck is going on, well, you've clicked on the right video. We're going to get into all the stats so that essentially you can make your own opinion on what's happening. But just to back up a little bit, if you haven't known, Edmonton's real estate market has been on a tear for the last little while here. Basically going back from December to March, we had crazy record growth, about 12% to be exact. And now it's been stagnant, but now we're seeing cracks in the home prices. We're seeing prices slide downwards. We actually have price decrease across all sectors, which is crazy to say, except one, which is the most interesting part. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to touch on, after we've gone through all this information, what I would say, or my opinions on if you're a home buyer or if you're a home seller, what you should do with this information. But again, you can make your own conclusions after watching this video. But let's get into the stats here. So the first page we're looking at here is what I was talking about earlier, is the home price index for Edmonton. As you can see in this graph here, we had a dramatic increase here in home prices here. And then it stayed flat for a couple months, and now we're decreasing here quite substantially, in my opinion. And so what I wanted to do as well is just have a couple months of data here at the top, just so you can get a snapshot of a time, place of what's happening here, but more just a picture into what's happening collectively, so you can see where things are headed. And so prices have actually gone down substantially since July versus June. And so moving on to the next page here is new listings. And so this is always a good sign of what's to come. And so we have May, June, July here. And actually July, we've had substantially more listings hit the market in July versus June. But then if you look at May there, we had crazy record amount of new listings as well. And so if you look at the year over year, so without Y versus Y or Y over Y, that's year over year. And then MM is month over month. And so just to clarify that really quick. And so as we can see here, we are kind of, May was a ton, June was a little bit less, and then July we had substantially more. But we have, again, year over year, we have substantially more new listings hitting the market. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is sales, because this is important. Like, new listings can hit the market, but what are the sales doing right now? And so, again, as we can see here, sales have remained somewhat stagnant here between June and July. And it's going to be interesting once August stats come out here, just to see where it's going, because seasonally speaking, when we're talking about sales, there's usually a little bit less in these summer months. And then when coming into fall, it usually picks up a little bit here. And so this will be interesting. But as we can see year over year, we actually are down in sales. And so there's less sales, a lot more new listings. And then this is the inventory, which is really a key indicator of what's happening here, is how many homes do we have on the market? And so right now we have 5,323 homes on the market, basically almost a 300 increase from June. And then that translates into months of inventory. And so if you, just to explain that just a little bit more in detail, if you're wondering what the heck months of inventory is, well, it's right now it's 2.7. And so if there was no new listings that hit the market right now, based on how many sales we had last month versus the inventory, we would have 2.7 months, basically months of inventory. And so as we get more inventory and less sales happen, months of inventory go up, then it becomes essentially more of a buyer's market, because there's lots more listings available for them to choose from. And then as months of inventory come down, it becomes more of a seller's market, because there's less inventory for buyers to choose from, and then in favor of sellers. And so moving on to the next page here, because what we just talked about there is the overall picture, the overall stats of what's happening between every segment. Now I want to get more into the nitty-gritty, and this is what I was talking about, where the one segment actually increased in the median home price, and it was detached homes. And so there's still a lot of pressure out there for detached homes. People want detached homes. And so just look at the stats here. We actually went up $2,000 from June. And then what I find interesting as well, the average days on market. And so if you are in a position to sell your house, detached house, sorry, well, you're in a bit of a good position right now. Home prices have increased, but just be wary that, which we're getting into more, is all the other sectors are coming down. So when will the detached market come down? It's hard to say, but I imagine it'll follow suit here in the next little while. But back to what I was saying here originally was days on market. And so this is how many days it takes to sell your home. And so if you're thinking about selling your home right now, or buying a home for that matter, it's going to take about 30 days, so about a month to sell your home. And this is just a little quick blurb from the Greater Edmonton stats. This is average prices increased 0.7% month over month to 578,000, bucking the short-term trend compared to other property types, while the year-over-year changes increased 4.8%. So there was still growth happening in the detached market. New detached listings were 3% higher than June and 19% higher than July of last year. Meanwhile, detached unit sales decreased. And so there's a lot more new listings happening, lots more building going on here in Edmonton. And so let's move on to the next segment here, which is semi-detached houses. Again, this is where we start to see the decreasings happening. July to June, we're seeing a 6,000 price point down. And just looking over the 3-month trend here, you can see May, June, July, just basically slowly ticking downwards. And the average days on market, like I mentioned before, this is just how many days it takes to sell a house. And this year it's taking a little bit longer. And so that kind of translates or correlates properly when you think about home prices coming down. Days on market, in theory, will go up because, I don't know, there's lots of listings right now. More pressure for the home sellers to decrease their property value. Then when you compare it to the average days on market, it makes sense that it's growing. And so detached properties fell 2.1% in June 2025, from June, sorry, a price that is still 5.8% higher. And so we are seeing that all sectors had crazy amounts of growth, right? But now we're starting to see a plateau and starting to come downwards. And so this is the interesting thing to keep an eye on, is just how far is it going to go down. And then July 2025 added 34% more new semi-detached listings than previous year. So again, record building going on there. It seems like 0.7% more than the previous month. And so it just makes sense. You're building a lot more of these new, obviously there's resales that are happening, and it's going to affect the housing market. Now moving on to row and townhome stats here. Another place where home prices are basically coming down, I should say. And then when you compare it from May, June, July, as you can see there, May and June are pretty much the same. Now July, we're taking a bit of a slump there. And then when we're talking days on market, you're looking about the 29 days to sell your property if you have a row or a townhome right now. And then row homes also added plenty of new listings, with 13% more properties listed over month and 21% more year over year. Sales in this category show the sharpest drop, slowing 4.3% compared to June and 6.6% compared to row home. Prices also fell in January, a 4.3 monthly decrease, and only increasing 0.1%. And so this increases that are happening from sector to sector. Every month it goes on, it seems like it's chipping away from those increases that had happened. And so again, it's going to be interesting to see how far prices do come down. And then the last one we just want to talk about here is just condos and apartments. And they also took a fairly substantial hit here as well, month over month being 4%. It's quite a big price reduction here month over month, especially if you think about, like, on average, we had a 12% growth, across the board here in the beginning of 2025. And now it's retracting quite a bit here. So average days on market, this is the biggest sector. We got 47 days. And so there's a lot of listings sitting for a long time. Sales were strong, increasing 3.5% from June, though activity is still 4.8% lower than previous year. And it's always interesting just how because a lot of these words here are from the board, and it's just the way they not twist it, but just like change the narrative in such a way where it's positive. So we'll see what happens here. But on that note, I want to talk briefly about, or comment on, I should say, briefly about what the board chair here is talking about, what's happening here in Edmonton. And so inventory levels high as summer market sales begin to wane. We've seen that in the data. There, August 1st, this came out. Activity in greater Edmonton area real estate market mostly kept in pace with June of 2025, selling 2,860 units. In July, month over month decreased 0.5%, but new listings outpaced sales as 4,387 properties were added to the system, an increase of 7.8%. And so it seems like everybody's just hopping on the bandwagon here, like, oh man, prices were at an all-time high here. Let's hop on the bandwagon. Like, let's try and capitalize on this. But it's almost a little too late, right? Like, we're seeing it in that graph there, where prices are starting to come down now. The detached market is still holding steady. And so maybe that's partially the reason why people are, maybe trying to get top dollar still here, but we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Year-over-year comparison painted clear picture shift in the greater Edmonton area. Residential unit sales are down 2.6%. New listings are up 20%. We've seen that in the data, while sales lagging and new listings plentiful. Inventory levels also trend up with 7,883 properties available at the end of the month, at 4.7% from June and almost 22% higher than last year. A lot more listings are on the market, less sales. It's like, and this is not just happening in Edmonton. We're talking Vancouver. We're talking all the major cities. It's happening everywhere. And so this shouldn't come as a surprise. The average sell price across all residential properties decreased, still 5.2% higher year over year. So again, they're relating to that massive growth that they had, but now it's starting to essentially decline here. And then just some words from Darlene there. Another month of strong listing activity has bolstered Edmonton's inventory levels to a point where motivated sellers might be willing to lower their prices to close the deal. Well, you probably should. You're probably going to have to here. Let's just be real. We're seeing that in all the other segments besides detached. But I imagine it's going to be happening here pretty quick here for the detached owners as well. And buyers' options remain plentiful. I won't speculate on whether the busy season is over just yet. Yeah, we'll see here. As this month's sellers often become next month's buyers. And we'll be watching to see if sales tick up again during the back to school months. And it probably will, realistically. Like, again, I've commented on this before, is that seasonally, statistically speaking, more activity happens in the fall months, right? Everyone's gone on vacation. They're not watching real estate videos from people like myself. They're on vacation. They're out doing stuff. They're having a good time. And so that's what Darlene had said. Now, we've gone over a lot of information here, like numbers heavy, stats heavy. And if you need to go watch it, go back and watch it again. But what does this actually mean for you? Well, if you're a buyer in 2025 here, you're thinking about making a move, or you're thinking about stepping into the market, here in 2025, whether it's in a couple months or later in the fall, I have some thoughts that I want to give you before doing so. And so we have a lot more listings in the market. We've seen that in the data. And so you have choices. You have a lot of choices. You can literally go around and just look at probably 10 properties that are very much similar to the one that you're looking at. Now, which relates into less competition, right? So you have more time now, right? There's what I find, again, what I've commented on before, is that we're in the summer right now. There's just less people out and about doing things because they're on holidays, they're out doing stuff. So you could capitalize on this time to make a move. And then sellers are more negotiable. We've even seen it in the Darlene there had mentioned that, where like sellers, they're going to have to start being more negotiable, because as we're seeing, prices are starting to trend downwards. And so if you want to sell your property, you're going to have to be more negotiable. And then prices are trending down, which I just commented on. Except the detached market, it's still holding steady, but it's going to happen. I imagine it will, because everywhere else is. So it's only a matter of time until it does. And the question I always ask is like, well, does it make sense to buy right now, or does it make sense to buy a little bit later? And it's truly based on your situation. If you need to buy right now, you could probably get a good deal on a property. But if you can wait, you might be better off, because prices are probably going to be coming down some more. How far? Nobody knows. Okay. But just keep that in mind. Like, if you need to buy now, great. But if you can wait a little bit, it might be in your best interest. And it's still important to get pre-approved. I say this all the time, probably in every video that I've made, is that there's no reason to go look at a bunch of properties that you can't afford. And so go talk to a lender, go talk to a mortgage broker. If you need a connection, I'm more than happy to make one. But you just want to know how much you can afford before you go out and look at properties and you get frustrated because you're like, oh, I can't afford that. It's just a waste of time. But now, if you're selling in 2025 here, maybe in the next couple of months, or maybe in the fall, or the closer to the end of the year here, I got some thoughts for you as well. And first off is you need to price it right from the start. As we've seen in the data there, prices are trending downwards. Detached, not yet. And so you want to be at where it's, what am I trying to say here? You want to be at where, you want to be where the market is at right now, or even slightly below. because as we're seeing, prices will most likely trend downward. And I'm going through this with a client right now as well. And just to give you an example, is that the market's right here, let's say. And you as a homeowner, you want to price it here because you want to try and get top dollar. But then a couple weeks go by and you're like, okay, let's reduce the price. But once you reduce the price, the market is actually down here now. And so now you're just playing this chasing game where if you would have just lowered it a little bit less, you actually would have gotten more money. We had that exact scenario happen with a client of mine. We had an offer for more than what we're listed at right now. And the next point is you need to make your home stand out. As we've seen in the data, there's a lot more listings on the market. I'm sure you're driving around downtown or wherever you are. You're like, wow, there's a lot of listings in the market. So what's going to make your house stand out? In my mind, I'm like, hey, fix what's broken, right? Clean up the house, pamper the yard. Like, just make it so when they walk in, they're like, wow, this place looks well maintained. I have to do nothing because you're competing with a lot of other listings right now in the market. And it's just unfortunate because it's what it is. But you want to make it so that your home, maybe it's not only just price, but it's like what you have or what your home condition is currently in that makes it stand out. The next one is just be ready for a longer sale time. We're seeing that now where days on market are growing. There's more listings in the market. There's more choices. And so now you're competing with more people. And so there's just going to be a longer sale time because the buyers, they're there, but they're not plentiful. Like they're waiting most likely for prices to come down more, or they're just not ready yet. And so just be ready for that. And then be flexible, or sorry, I should say, stay flexible on your terms, or be flexible. Like I mentioned earlier or alluded to, is that you have a lot of competition. And so chances are you have the exact same product or same house as somebody else down the street. And so what's going to make the buyer choose you, right? Maybe it's more flexible on completion date. Maybe it's more flexible on the price. Maybe it's more flexible on whatever it may be. But just be wary that like buyers are coming to negotiate. And if you don't negotiate, well, they might move on to somebody else who will. And then the last one here is just know your reason for selling. I just think this is so important because the last thing you want to do is just go through all of this headache potentially. Again, it's not always a headache. But right now, there's a lot of competition. There's potentially a lot of pain that can happen because you show your home to a whole bunch of buyers. Maybe you get some lowball offers. Maybe you just get discouraged, or maybe you get frustrated. Like there's just a lot of reasons right now to get frustrated and be in a position where your home may not sell. And so then you question yourself, like, well, why am I selling my house? And so what I always like to say is like, in this market, it's going to be a little bit tougher. And so really knowing your reason why you're selling is important because like I alluded to earlier, you don't want to go through all of this and then just take your house off the market. Now, what I will say is that's more than okay. If like, let's say you're working with me and you want to take your house off the market, I'm more than happy to, right? Things change, people's minds can change. So you just want to be sure on why you're selling. But what I'm most curious on is what is your thoughts and opinions on what's going to happen here in the Edmonton market? Do you agree with me? Do you flat out disagree with me? I appreciate both sides of the story or both comments because it's always interesting just hearing someone's perspective of what's happening here in Edmonton. And so if you are looking for somebody though to help you make a purchase or help you sell your home, I'm more than happy to make an introduction to somebody that I know. I have some good realtors out that way because full disclosure, I do not live in Edmonton, but I'm more than happy to make the connection if you see fit. And if you'd like to stay up to date with what's happening here at Edmonton, stay informed about the facts, the information, what's coming out, or what the real estate board is saying, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button as I'm going to be coming out with videos like this one every single month so that you guys can stay informed. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.